Last night's violent, hours-long standoff ended with no fatalities. All 6 officers who were shot, thank God, have been released from the hospital. And just after midnight, the perpetrator finally surrendered. And how did some of the residents of North Philly, how did they thank their police department? All right, we'll put the music down. Now look at your screen. They taunted them. They shoved them. Again, only a few. They pelted them with objects. KYW said only 2% of the 100% there, 98% did not involve themselves. These brave men and women in uniform ready to take a bullet. 6 Philly police officers took bullets yesterday to make this neighborhood a safer place. That's the thanks cops get in the middle of an ongoing crisis like this? A daycare center across the street? These officers saving countless lives, putting themselves in harm's way. And there are people that are taunting them, pelting them with objects. Treating them this way is beyond repulsive. Frankly, just like the ongoing felony assaults against police officers in New York City with water and other objects now. And today, here we are, less than 24 hours after the standoff. Police were forced to respond to yet another shooting in the exact same neighborhood. 5 people were shot today. And these brave Philly police officers back again at work in some of the most dangerous conditions in America. They deserve better. You know, I suspected when I was on my radio show yesterday that something wasn't right. The fact that it was about 9:40 last night in the middle of this program, our coverage on this program, we found out all that time police officers with people they had apprehended were on the 2nd floor the entire time. And thankfully, they got out safely because of the good work, the diligence of the commissioner and everybody else and all law enforcement there. But at the very same time that this standoff is going on, Democrats, the media mob, they were exploiting what was an ongoing crisis for political gain. Instead of actually covering what is serious, breaking news on the ground, lives at stake. For example, fake news CNN, before less than an hour into their breaking news coverage, dedicating an entire segment pushing strict gun control, and less than an hour into the shooting, police officers still ducking for cover and returning fire. There was 2020 hopeful Kamala Harris in front of the camera saying this. Take a look.
What's your reaction to these initial reports? And I stress the word initial reports.
Well, it's just, when will it stop, right? I mean, part of my focus on what we need to do around smart gun safety laws is recognize that we have to have more enforcement around gun dealers. 90% of the guns that are associated with crime are sold by just 5% of the gun dealers in the United States. And so among the many plans that I have, both in the form of executive action and also in the form of legislation, one of them is to put more resources into the ATF to take the licenses of gun dealers who violate the law.
Okay, Senator Harris, it was less than an hour. Remember, this is at about 5:26 in the afternoon. She's saying that. And we had police officers and people they apprehended in the building. Oh, they were there, let's see, at 9:40 at night. She didn't know any of the facts on the ground. She didn't know who the shooter was. She didn't know anything at all about the ongoing standoff. She didn't know there were people at risk in that same building where there was a live shooter in there. All these people risking their lives, serving and protecting the people of Philadelphia. Kamala Harris is in the comfort of a fake news CNN studio hawking a political agenda about something she knows nothing about. Beyond sick, ugly, twisted, shameful. And as a former prosecutor, frankly, you would think she would know better. And several other 2020 Democratic hopefuls also, yes, shamelessly weighing in during the ongoing standoff. They don't even wait for it to end now. Kirsten Gillibrand doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of ever being the president, blaming the NRA while bullets are still flying. Cory Booker on Roswell Rachel Maddow's Conspiracy TV Hour calling for federal background checks. It still wasn't resolved. Pretty disgusting, sadly, not shocking, not surprising, all too predictable. And we can't forget last week it was Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. They were literally advancing those old lies, 5-year-old lies and conspiracy theories that had been debunked about Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot, and Officer Darren Wilson. Lies debunked by one eyewitness after another that saw the incident. Even Obama's Justice Department didn't agree with the analysis of Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. Their Justice Department pointed out all the eyewitness testimony on the ground. And even now, after, another shooting, Democrats, the media mob, they're almost too giddy at a chance once again to politicize a tragedy. Very predictable, very sad. But think about this. Every weekend, there are dozens of shootings in some of America's biggest cities. Let's look at the city of Chicago. The last 2 weekends alone, nearly 100 people were shot. Nearly 100 people. These violent cities have been run for decades by liberal Democrats. These cities all have one thing in common: very strict gun laws. So guess what? We don't hear a peep from Democrats. The ones that were getting all upset and raising money off the events in El Paso and the events in Dayton, you don't hear a peep out of them about Chicago. It doesn't fit their political agenda. Ultimately, the left's hysteria over gun control has very little to do with the people that are being shot. In Pennsylvania, for example, violent felons, they are not allowed to purchase guns. It's illegal. Last night's shooter was a convicted violent felon with at least a dozen arrests, including the illegal possession of firearms and aggravated assault, and yet he was in possession of multiple guns. No new law was going to stop him. He had belonged in jail. And meanwhile, the shooters in El Paso, Dayton, they had no felonies on their records. There's no background check that would likely have ever stopped them from purchasing any weapon. So this is all feel-good-ism in the name of stricter and stricter gun control for innocent people, law-abiding Americans that have a right to defend their homes and families. Murder is illegal in every single state in this country. Shooting people is illegal, except in self-defense. Criminals don't seem to care. They don't follow the law by the very nature of what they do, like the rest of us. And in a country with open borders, guns will always be available. Maybe they should help control the borders. But if Democrats and weak, feckless Republicans now get their way, those of us who follow the law are responsible gun owners, we would be left totally unarmed and defenseless. Once you give away your rights, you're never going to get them back. On this program, for example, we had, 2020 hopeful Comrade de Blasio, the mayor of New York City. He wouldn't answer any question I asked again and again and again. He had his armed security guards with him. I asked whether people in the city of New York have the right to have a gun in their house if, God forbid, something happens. He kept saying, they have a right to be safe. I said, I didn't ask you that. Do they have a right to a gun? They have a right to be safe. Do they have a right to a gun? They have a right to be safe. That means no. He was saying no in his own way. So for them, your rights are not important as long as they're protected. Hollywood stars, they can afford armed security guards.